Hey, what's up, guys? Joker here for TGW 87. I'm joined once again by Anthony from Tweaktown, who's back from. You were in Sydney last week, right? Was it Sydney?
Yes, Sydney last week, San Diego next week.
So, and Sydney was for Qualcomm, right? Or was that San Diego?
Yeah, both for Qualcomm, but last week was Sydney for the Gigabit LTE test. So they did
Oh,
a test that was pushing 930 megabits per second on a smartphone connection, which was
wow.
pretty mind blowing to see. Pretty mind blowing.
So, did they say like how long away from actually seeing that in reality?
In Australia, I know that Telstra are pushing out plans later this month. They didn't talk about any pricing. They just said we'll have plans with the tech ready. And then I think they said Europe is the next rollout over the next couple of months, and then into some cities within the US towards the end of the year.
Damn. Yeah, we need. I'd like to see it somewhere in the U.S. We still don't have Google Fiber where I live. That's still only in a few cities. For phones, we have got 4G. Excuse me, like 4G LTE. That's about the best you can ask for, I believe, in the U.S. And that's what I've gotten. Even sometime when I've got 4G LTE with like full bars, it'll just like not want to work for whatever reason. It's like I don't know what's going on.
And see, I
Just need
think
more
that's the problem
bandwidth.
that it's in the US, right? Like whenever I travel, I get those issues in the States, but over here, the 4G networks over here are world class. I
Yeah.
don't get those issues. And I think that before they introduce this kind of like new leap in technology, they really need to nail the existing stuff and make sure 4G LTE is awesome and then bring out gigabit.
Yeah, I
But
agree. Like, it's the weirdest thing because when I was in Seattle twice last year in 2016, and that's a very techie city, so you'd expect them to have the best of everything. And I'd never had a worse time in my life trying to get connected to things than in the city of Seattle. It didn't matter what it was, whether it was my cell phone connection or the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi at the hotel was bad. Wi-Fi at my B&B was bad. Wi-Fi at the event venue was bad. It was just bad everywhere. Just bad Wi-Fi. Just wherever I went, bad cell phone connection. Just terrible.
and it shouldn't happen in 2017, right? Even
No.
2016, 2015. Like what's going to happen? We're going to have 5G in a couple of years, and we're going to still have these connectivity issues. Like you're going to have what 3 or 4 gigabits a second of bandwidth, but only get a 100 megabit connection, and then even then it drops down, and you don't get signal to call anyone, or it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, try uploading videos like 4K videos in a hotel on 2 megabit Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's like sit
Well,
there and edit the video on a laptop, render it out, and then it's like uploading. It's like 5 hours remaining. It's like okay, I guess that's tomorrow's video now.
yeah. No, I think technology still has a long way to go for everyone to enjoy it like that.
Yeah, I remember hearing rumors like a few years ago that Google was just gonna eventually have like Wi-Fi in the cloud for everyone, like gigabit speed and everything. Like they need to get on that.
I
Like if
expect
they're,
that sooner than later, I reckon.
yeah, I think that we'll get that before we'll get Google Fiber anywhere.
Yeah.
And but if I mean I guess that's going to be the means to them taking over the world and launching Skynet. So, but by all means, I mean get it underway if that means be getting like gigabit everywhere.
That's it. As long as Skynet kind of doesn't take over for another 20, 30 years when we're too old to really worry about it,
Yeah,
then I'm okay with that. So as long as I can really get really good internet access between now and then Skynet can take over in like 20 years.
yeah. Give us all the good stuff for the time being, up right up until when the machines are ready to take over. But while the entire time leading up to that, like we'll be reaping all the benefits, and then the machines will look back on that period, like during this period, like the humans they thought they had it so good. They're like, look at all this tech we've got, and then little did they know, right around the corner was complete doom. Well, some of us knew. We were just lapping it up and enjoying it while we could, because it was
Yeah,
coming anyway.
yep, good internet. Yeah, good prices. Half-Life 3 will be released the day before Skynet's turned on. So that's probably how it'll happen. We'll get a couple of hours of
That'll be enough
playing.
time to finish it. I
Yeah,
would not
that's
stop playing until I finished it. So I'll be
I'm
good with that.
I'm 100% same. I would literally sit at my PC until I passed out playing that game.
I think that's how Half Life 3 will have to be written by a
Yep.
machine. Obvious. I think that's an
Is there
inevitable
any way
outcome.
it'll get finished?
That's the only way it'll get finished because then they'll. That's the only way Valve will be brave enough to release it out to the public because then they could just blame the PC. Like no,
That's
Watson
it.
did it. Watson did it.
Yep.
It was his fault.
Yep.
Blame
See.
Watson.
Yep. No, you've got it worked out. You're probably going to get Skynet coming after you now. They'll send someone back in time to take you out because he said that.
Probably. If I had a time machine right now, I would probably go up to the Ryzen launch.
We wouldn't have to go too far. So
How about that segue? That was golden right there.
that was good. That was a smooth transition, not forced at all.
No, definitely, certainly not. All right, you want to take this one? I did a video on this earlier this week, but you were saying you had some info as well on the 8 core
I
16
do.
thread.
So in the last couple of days, I have had a very good source of mine tell me that everything that we're seeing here is mostly true. So AMD are launching their new Ryzen range of processors, which will arrive, and this is confirmed at least by my source, that the R7 1800X name and the entire naming structure that we have here with the R7 1800X all the way down to the R3 Pro 1100, that's completely locked in. That's pretty much what you see there. That's the naming structure. Some of those things might change, like the little releases, but that's what we're going to get. From what I've heard, the 1800X, which is the flagship Ryzen CPU, 8 cores, 16 threads, that will be competing against the 6900K, which you can see on that chart. But in games, it won't be as fast as a 7700K. So probably looking at more like 6700K performance, which is still fine. I think that's fine. And what I've heard is the overclock. Obviously, AMD say it's going to be 3.4 gig and above. But from what I've heard from my sources, it's going to be between 4 and 4.3 on like all-in-one water coolers. And then you'll probably hit 5 gig on LN2. But everything that we see there seems to be good. We just don't know the price yet. So if AMD can launch that 1800X at maybe, I'm thinking somewhere between $599 and $799, will be good. But then it depends on what Intel does to force that price down on their chips, which I think is going to happen very soon, pretty much within hours or a day of AMD launching Ryzen. I think Intel's going to fire back with price drops.
Now, I mean, my question is looking at these with the low frequency on these chips. Like, yeah, they've got the higher core and thread count, but how many games are really going to take advantage of that many cores and threads? So, like, per core, or the IPC, I guess, are they going to be much faster than the KB Lake i7 7700K, where they can make up for that by still having a lower frequency than those, which can easily hit 5 gigahertz?
I think that I'm looking forward to seeing the benchmarks between them. And I think that once these chips are out, it's going to be really good to be able to compare, like any of the Ryzen, let's say the 1800X versus the 1600X. I think the 1600X is going to be a really interesting chip. Comparing those at say 4 gigahertz versus Skylake and Kaby Lake at the same frequency, because we're going to be able to finally compare clock for clock versus these just benchmarks that kind of come out and no one knows much about it. It's all just purported, benchmarks. We don't know what kind of speed to expect. But I agree, like these clock speeds seem low, but maybe we're living in a world where we're expecting high clock speeds equals high performance. Maybe the Sense MI stuff will do some good things, but I'm worried that we're going to need like almost like this fly. It's only when I go on these live streams, I get like a fly that lands in my face. I swear. It happens to me like not that often.
He's attracted to your beard. It's what it is.
That's what it is. He's thinking he can land there and just camo in and live in there for a couple of days. And it's I don't know.
I would if I was him.
See,
just nestle in there,
It's nice and warm in there.
I'm sure it is.
I'm going to keep it growing for a little while now. I did shave it, but I'm going to keep it growing. Everyone tells me to keep it growing. All these people online, the people that see my live streams, like, keep it going. I'm like, I will listen to you this time, and I will let it grow. But I want to see the clock for clock AMD v Intel. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be the first time, pretty much in the last, I can't remember the last time, 5 years plus, where Intel is going to be forced to drop the prices. But if AMD release these CPUs and they don't compete at the same level as what we think they will, then they might not drop the prices, or maybe just they'll drop the prices of a couple of their CPUs, not the entire range.
I would even be interested to test some of these Ryzen chips versus other Ryzen chips, like taking the 8-core 16-thread part versus the 4-core 8-threaded, and put them up against each other, both about 4 gigahertz, if you can get them both there, and see what they kind of do to see if the games are actually taking advantage of the additional cores to the point where it makes sense for gamers to spend the additional money on an 8-core CPU, even when they are going to be as affordable as what Zen is, or if they can still stick with 4 cores, 8-threaded like they could on Intel and get comparable performance,
Well, I think that everyone's looking at the R7 1800X, and I feel like we're being blinded by that.
Because that's all they've shown off. That's all they've shown off.
That's it, and I don't think that that's going to be the CPU that's going to lead Ryzen into the direction where AMD thinks they'll be led. I think that it's going to be more like that R5 1400X and the R5 1600X. I think that those 4-core 8-thread, 6-core 12-thread CPUs, they'll be the popular ones. AMD, just like everything, right? You know, people don't really care about the GTX 1050 or the 1060. They want to hear about the 1080, 1080 Ti, and Titan X, even though those sales are a tiny portion, like less than 20%. But they're the ones that make the headlines. They're the ones that impress the stock market. They're the ones that impress all the enthusiasts, and the enthusiasts just like water that down to everyone else. I think that, yeah, the R5 1600 and the R5 1400X, they're going to be the ones that are going to sell really well. And like you said, I'm looking forward to comparing that. I don't really care about the Intel v AMD performance. As long as it can get close to Intel within 10-15%, I think that that's fine. But I can't wait to test Ryzen v Ryzen either. I think that that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and also inevitably, if you get like the 1600X even, which is 6-core 12-threaded, which is meant to be more towards in the kind of the mid-range on this CPU stack, and you pair that with what's going to be inevitably a much cheaper motherboard with AM4 versus Z270 from Intel, it's just gonna bring down the cost of the entire system. So you're gonna start to see much stronger budget systems for like that $600 to $700 range, where you can throw in a 6-core 12-threaded Ryzen CPU with like an GTX 1070 even, and you're gonna be crushing it. You'll be able to conceivably do that for like $700-800.
Yep, and that's gonna be a big deal, and I don't think people really see that right now. If you buy a mid-range Intel CPU, you're only getting a 4-core part, and most of the time not even hyperthreading.
And then you got to go out and spend another $150 to $200 on a motherboard.
Yeah, and that's for a lower end or mid range system. If you buy a high end system, you're spending 400 plus on the board.
Oh yeah.
Like even here in Australia, the Gigabyte Z270 boards, the Asus Z270 boards here in Australia, they're nearly $1,000.
Wow.
And that's not even HEDT. So
Damn.
it's I know there's countries outside of the US where the boards really scale up in price, depending on obviously on the dollar and all the trade and all that kind of stuff. But here in Australia, like I got that board and I remember Gigabyte saying, "Oh, this is really expensive." And I looked up the price in Australia. I'm like, "Holy shit, it's nearly $1,000." That's where AMD can really hurt Intel sales, as you were talking about before, is that the motherboard price is going to be way cheaper. You might buy the 1600X or the 1400X. They're going to cost under $400. I don't see the 1600X being over $500. I just don't see that happening. Maybe say $399 for that chip, and then you're probably going to get a good board for maybe $149 or $199. But getting 6 cores, 12 threads of performance, and like you said, putting in like a GTX 1070 or a new Vega card, you could spend less on your CPU motherboard, go to Ryzen, still have a kick-ass system, and then just spend the additional money that you'd save on the CPU motherboard that you traditionally spend on an Intel setup on the graphics card. Winner.
Yeah, and I'm gonna move this other story up to the next one because I think it makes more sense with the Intel's answer to this, which inevitably is going to be the i5 with the hyperthreading. So
Yes.
it's shaping up right now, at least according to Canard PC, which is a French magazine website, does PC stuff for ages. They've been around for pretty much forever. Have rumored that there's going to be an answer to Ryzen with a new i5 and an i7 CPU. So they'd have the 7740K, which would come at 4.3 gigahertz and boost to 4.6, and then we would see the i5 7640K, which would be 4 gigahertz, and then it would also have hyperthreading. So that's really the big thing there, is seeing that with hyperthreading. So with coming out of the box at 4 gigahertz with 6 megabytes of L3 cache, that's basically a 7700K with 2 megabytes less L3 cache. That's basically what they're selling you there. And
But then that's the Core i5 CPU, the 7640K. That's supposedly an LGA 2011 CPU.
Oh, okay.
That's the big difference. I don't think it says anything here, but when I read about it, I heard, maybe I could go to the CPC hardware one, but they said it was a 2011 socket, which if it is, then that's going to be very expensive because the motherboard's going to be expensive. Let's see if I can find it. Of course not going to find it. Oh, LG 2066, sorry, not 2011.
So then they're saying that so does that mean you would need basically an X99 piece motherboard then to run these things?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why this is a big note, is that it's the first Core i5 processor on the HEDT side of things with hyperthreading, which is really awesome. But that, to me, that feels like a direct answer to the R5 1600X.
Yeah, it does, but if they're not making that available for, Z270 board owners or Z170 board owners,
And
then
it's useless.
it's
It's
pretty
useless.
much it's useless for the market segment that it would fit in perfectly for, which would be people that are kind of right between the i5 and the i7, adding a little bit more market segmentation, which Ryzen is going to eat up. Like it's nobody's business with 17 different CPUs in the stack, while Intel just rolls out like, oh yeah, we've got some that some overclock and some don't. And some got
I think that
hyperthreading and
this
some don't.
is, and if you look at Hexus's the opening paragraph up the top, just above the picture,
Yeah.
it says, "Of course, pricing is key to how disruptive AMD's launch will be, but it looks like Intel is preempting some trouble as rumors circulate of implementing a last resort solution that represents a confession of indisputable weakness." And it's like, yes, that's exactly what it is. This is Intel showing weakness. If they're pushing out rumors, and again, I've got a source that has confirmed that these two CPUs, Intel had them planned for a little while. These aren't just new, but they're pushing out the rumors quicker than what they normally would, to try and water down the launch of Ryzen. But if the Core i5 7640K launches as an LGA 2066 or 2011 or whatever it launches as, if it's not on the same socket as 1151, that's going to be very bad for Intel, because
Oh yeah,
who in
it's
their right
horrible.
mind would buy a mid-range processor? Like, that means the processor is probably going to cost less than your motherboard.
Yeah,
Like, why would you do that? You're going to go straight to Ryzen and
you're gonna
spend
go buy
probably the same money on a CPU, but then spend half the money on a board.
yeah. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you should not be spending more for a motherboard than your CPU. The motherboard should be about half the price of your processor, in my opinion.
So unless
Yeah,
unless they're trying to, like you were saying before, unless the Core i5 7640 is going to be a 7700K replacement, and maybe they're trying to give a 7700K on the higher end platform on the X99 chipset, that makes sense to think from that perspective. But then it's like, why not just go to the Kaby Lake system and just go for a motherboard that's half the price than an
yeah.
X99 chip? Yeah, it's really strange. I hope they don't do that, but it seems like they're gonna do that.
At
So,
that point, you'd be better off sticking with the Z270 and getting an i7.
yep,
The
yep,
money you're saving on the motherboard, you put on the CPU, and
yep,
then you've got the
100%.
extra 2 MB of cache. This processor on 2011 makes absolutely zero sense.
Yep. The 7740, that sounds great. I've got nothing bad to say about that. I think that's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Not That's not gonna hurt AMD, but it's good to see Intel bring out another chip that pretty much replaces the 7700K. But the Core i5, if it is on X99, it's like, what the hell, Intel? Like, why are you doing this? And I think that again, again, that last resort solution that represents a confession of indisputable weakness, that just rings like 100%, because this is Intel right now going, crap, let's release a mid-range chip that makes absolutely makes no sense on our lineup, so we can compete against AMD, because we weren't expecting them to release. Like, I bet you Intel was sitting there thinking AMD would have 4 or 5 Ryzen CPUs. I bet you thinking, super high end, just below that 20% less, mid-range, 20% less, low end. But for them to come out with 17 CPUs, I bet you Intel is spinning around in circles right now.
Yeah, they're pretty much on their heels, and this next story we have up also kind of spells bad news for them, where it looks like AMD's Ryzen x86 core is about 10% more compact than Intel's. So this is coming in at 44 millimeters squared versus 49 millimeters squared on Intel, which is inevitably going to equate to better efficiency and stuff for the AMD Ryzen core, right?
Yes, but then I have heard that there is a big difference here. So Zen is smaller, but it doesn't have any GPU cores, where Intel will have, they'll actually have iGPU. Second is that there's no I/O on the Zen core, where all the I/O is done on a chipset on Intel's motherboards. So this chip is smaller, but then they have I/O on the CPU, which does take up space, and then no GPU, which then frees up space.
So basically, what you're saying is it might end up being about the same performance, I guess, at the end of the day, because they're not using that additional space that Intel needs, I guess, for the extra stuff that they're putting onto
Yep.
their CPU.
Yep. And I think that this stuff is like really pulling hairs. Like,
It
when
really
have you
is.
ever heard about this? Like,
This is the
NVIDIA's
first
new
time ever.
GPU is 5% smaller silicon than Vega. It's like, no one cares about this. But it's like they're having to, like, when I woke up to this, I'm like, really? You're scraping the bottom of the barrel to be talking about the actual, like, you're talking at a layer point, like a metal layer point. That's just It's insane.
Well, I guess that makes us guilty of scraping the bottom of the barrel too. Then, since we used it as a news story, you
Hey,
could you could blame, you could blame me. I picked it.
no, but it makes sense to talk about it because I think that to report on it, I don't see anything in there that talks about. It doesn't talk about the GPU side. That's the one thing that I found interesting is that if you take into consideration that AMD has the I/O built into the CPU versus Intel with the chipset, that should be noted because that takes up die space. If you're also talking about integrated GPU technology, Intel has that. That takes up die space. So then does that make AMD's Zen architecture less efficient based on square millimeter of the die used because it doesn't have any of that stuff? But then you know what? I don't care. If they have the performance, I don't care. I don't care if the CPU was like this big and I had to have like
Yeah.
a huge like water cooler on it. But if it was able to do like, 24 threads at 10 gigahertz, I don't care. We've talked about this before. I
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
care.
Yeah, more power, whatever. Like the Tim Taylor motto of
That's it.
PC building.
Yep.
So I guess what you're saying at the end of the day is it's a bit of a stretch that they're saying this difference would be similar to the types that they saw when they went over to Steamroller and the
Yep.
design level enhancements they were seeing that from a die shrink is a bit of a stretch to think that you would see it on this just because it's 5 millimeters squared smaller than Intel.
Yep. It'd be good if they brought up the integrated GPU side and the I/O being built into the CPU. But I would also like to see a comparison between the previous AMD CPU architecture and this one. That'd be interesting to see how much area and fin pitch and metal pitch, standard 6T SRAM and metal RAM has. Like, what's
I was
CPE?
I don't know. I
Like,
was reading this. I was just like, I hope Anthony knows what half of this stuff is because I don't know. I don't know what that stands for.
I'm a nerd and I understand most of that, but not all of it.
It's like, hey,
Uh,
I just learned like a few weeks ago about centinewtons, so just let me have that for now, and I'll
See,
stick
there
with
you go. You sound smarter than me just by saying that word.
Yeah, like, yeah. I was like reading up about it. I was like, oh, everyone's out there saying like something else. Like, no, it's centinewtons, not grams. Centinewtons for these key switches, 65 centinewtons. All right, Intel Lake Crest. You wrote this article up. You want to take this one about the 32 gigabytes of
Yes.
HBM2 CPUs?
It's impressive. So while Intel is suffering, not suffering, while Intel will most likely suffer because of the Ryzen launch, they do have some pretty cool stuff coming out for the data center and enterprise markets. So Intel have been there for a while in those two markets, but they've been hurting recently because of NVIDIA. NVIDIA have been stepping into the data center and deep learning, artificial intelligence with their GeForce and Quadro and Tesla products. And as I said, Intel have been there, but they're kind of losing because it's much more efficient to do everything on a GPU. So then the leaks started coming out about Intel's new Lake Crest CPU architecture. But first off, the company bought a startup. They're a deep learning startup called Nirvana. Not like the band, which was awesome. Nirvana is spelled with an E here, not an I. But they bought the company for $350 million, and they work on deep learning workloads. So this is where Intel want to obviously acquire that company versus trying to do any of that themselves. But then Nirvana's technology mixed with Intel offers 100 times reduction compared to today's fastest solution in the time to train something. Obviously like a program or whatever they're doing on deep learning. This is by 2020, so 100 times reduction is absolutely huge. But the big bit here is the hardware. So Intel is actually going to have HBM2 on die, which they state is 12 times faster than DDR4, and proprietary inter-chip links that are 20 times faster than PCIe. So that's kind of like, I'm guessing, Intel's kind of answer in a way to NVLink. But it seems very interesting that Intel are moving into this in a big way because Lake Crest is going to act like a Xeon co-processor. So it'll assist with AI workloads and not just be like a standalone thing that just sits there and does it itself. But you can also use this with multi-chip modules. So you can actually build a system with multiple of these, which is insane. So I think you can have 4 working together with the 32 gig of HBM2 per chip. You're gonna have an insane amount of power, absolutely insane amount of power.
I think it makes sense to see Intel kind of going in this direction. At CES when I saw Jensen from Nvidia doing his big press thing, where I was just sitting there waiting for a 1080 Ti announcement, just sitting there waiting for it, and he just didn't give it to me, but he talked about the cars and the machine learning and all that stuff so much, and I was just like, damn. It just from one thing to the next, it sounded like once again he was building up Skynet essentially, and it just everything he was saying sounded like it was miles ahead of what Intel had out there in the space. So seeing this announcement come so shortly after doesn't really surprise me too much. But it's definitely exciting to see another contender out there in the space, because I think right now Nvidia is pretty much the duck's nuts in that area, right?
And there's nothing that anyone can really do to stop NVIDIA. AMD has Radeon Instinct, which will do some damage, but NVIDIA have so much money and they have so many connections, and they became kind of like the Intel of deep learning and artificial intelligence, as like Intel did with consumer CPU technology, very quickly. But I think that it can be disrupted. It can be disrupted, but
because they had these processors that were built for video processing that have been so much stronger than normal CPUs for so long, and they found another application they could put it into that technology besides just making video games look pretty, and that's what they're doing now.
And I think that that's good to see Intel doing what they're doing there, but NVIDIA are already owning it with current generation GPUs. What's going to happen when Volta launches? You're probably looking at having 16 to 32 gig of HBM2 on die with a truly next generation GPU architecture. Remember that Pascal is pretty much just a refresh of Maxwell. Volta is the next big step for NVIDIA. So once that comes out, whatever Intel has coming out, remember this chip, like Crest, isn't even here. So once it's here, NVIDIA will just be like, yes, up, what's going on? Stomp and just release another product, and then that's it. Game over.
That'd be pretty funny. This next story, this is the last thing we've got on Intel or AMD for the day at least. So there's a lot of Intel AMD stuff kind of tossing around, a lot of heavy topics. This next one is focusing on something that I've been kind of following ever since it first was brought to the forefront by Kyle Bennett over at Hard OCP, who had been talking about Intel working behind closed doors with AMD to kind of strike a deal where they would bring an AMD graphics processor onto Intel CPUs. And still, according to this article, nothing has been finalized yet, and they are theorizing that is because they're waiting for like a new fiscal year so they can finally basically pen the final deal. But from other articles that I've been reading around on this recent thing, it looks like we may actually see another Kaby Lake based processor, kind of like mid-tier, coming out sometime in mid-2017 that's going to have an AMD GPU on it. Now, could that be the other ones that we were talking about before? What was it? The i5-7640K? Do you think that would be what they're talking about here, or is this something completely different?
I think it probably will be something different. And I think that everything that I've been hearing about this is that it's going to be a low-end or mid-range part. It's not going to do anything on the high-end. AMD aren't going to be providing like Vega GPU technology onto Intel's high-end, like 7700K. It's going to be more like, I think that what we're going to see is this partnership makes sense if you think of it from an actual product perspective, not like just a chip. If you think about what can this go into, so like laptops, like the next generation Ultrabooks, the next generation of tablets, like say Surface Pro 5, Surface Book 2, whatever it ends up being called. I think that would be perfect, and having
off the shelf system, off the shelf,
yep,
yeah,
and just go have like that you see an Intel sign for CPU side, yep, that's great. You see an AMD Radeon side for GPU, you think that's great. Where
great,
I think
you that be able to play something, at least some Counter-Strike at 720p. It's like I'll be able to play some games on this thing.
Yep, and I think that they know that market. Like they know that if they can hit the hundreds of millions of gamers, like you said, the CS:GO, League of Legends, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, all those kinds of games, you don't need a crazy standalone GPU. Even an APU, as long as Intel could offer like specific performance, 1080p 60, for example, if they can provide a 1080p 60 APU experience, that's going to be really, really good. Really good for Intel, really good for AMD, not so good for NVIDIA because they're squeezed out of this. But hey, that's business.
Yeah, it is. I'll continue to follow this, and if they get anything come to this in the coming months, obviously we'll cover it here again on the channel, whether it's from Kyle Bennett just kind of talking, or from this deal actually, kind of seeing the light of day from Intel and AMD making announcements. But we'll continue to follow it. This next one I thought was rather interesting. Looks like DDR6 from Micron is going to be a thing sooner rather than later. I guess they're looking for an answer to HBM2, which is certainly exciting. We're expected to see it sometime, I guess, next year in 2018 or the end of 2017. It's going to be 16 gigabytes per second versus DDR5X, which is 10 gigabytes per second. And what is HBM2 by chance? How many gigabytes?
HBM2, I think it works out differently because it
it's
goes
multiple.
by pin. So I think it's 1 gigabyte per second. Oh no, 1 gigabit per second per pin. But yeah, the bandwidth works out differently, which is kind of confusing. I know that HBM2 on Vega will be less than 512 gigabytes per second. But then GDDR5X on Titan X with 384-bit memory bus is 480 gigabytes a second. So we should be expecting about the same, like about the 10, 12 gigabits per second for HBM2.
Gotcha. So this is going to be comparable to HBM2.
Yep. Well, this will be the replacement of GDDR5 and GDDR5 and maybe even GDDR5X, because it's offering like 16 gigabit is crazy. But then you're not going to be able to have, like, HBM2 would be great because you're going to have different form factors because of HBM2. Where GDDR6 would be interesting to see if the power goes down enough that that they can make smaller graphics cards.
And comparing this again to HBM2, I guess, are we looking at this being faster or maybe just cheaper to manufacture? Or
I think a little bit of both. I think cheaper to be mainstream, faster, probably in terms of bandwidth. But then when will it come out? You know, I think that this kind of stuff will most likely arrive with Pascal. So, sorry, not Pascal, Volta. And you have a HBM2 Volta, which would be the high-end kind of, the GTX 1080 replacement and Titan X replacements and above. And then the 1070s and below will use GDDR6.
Interesting. All right. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. We'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully we'll see some. I just want more GPUs. We need to get more GPUs already. It feels like it's been forever since we got a big high-end GPU. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat just waiting for it here. Yep. It's like AMD came out with the 400 series, which was fun, but we need the high end. We need the Vega. I need 1080 Ti. So give me Vega so I can get 1080 Ti.
Yeah.
Or a better Vega GPU or something. Just someone release a graphics card, please.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same. I feel like I don't think I reviewed a graphics card in a while now, and it feels really weird. After last year, right? Last year, the first 7-8 months was just non-stop. It was Polaris launched December 25th, or Polaris unveiled December 2015. Then the big Macau event in May. Then Nvidia's event in Texas in May. Then the launch is in June, and then all the cards, the samples start coming. It's like, whoa. And I'm thinking, no, please, this needs to stop. And then it does stop. And I'm like, no, this needs to keep going again. And I want to get back up onto the train and go. So I really want to see Vega. I really want to see it.
Someone is saying something in chat about a pricing link. What's the pricing link?
I'm trying to Google that now, but I can't see anything.
I can't find anything yet. I'm looking around on my standard leak type of websites, so I don't know. What is it, a Ryzen? Here it is. AMD Ryzen for prices filter over Europe. Spanish blog filtered prices from R7 models, 8 cores, 16 threads. Says the 1800X is €600, 1700X €470, and 1700 is €390.
And so what was the 1800X? How many euros? 600?
600 euros, yeah, from a Spanish blog, El Chapuzas.
So that's $641, which falls into the $699 price, which is what I think it will be. I think $699 is where we'll find 1800X, and I think that's a good price because that's 30% cheaper than Intel and the 6900K.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's a rumor like anything, so take it with a grain of salt. But thank you for letting us know in chat. So what you're saying is the 1800X be around $650, which is what it was rumored at. Basically what we've been talking about for a while. That price.
Yep. I think that works out to be perfect.
Yep, that's about what we'd expected. I'll definitely be getting one of those bad boys.
Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. Who's that in chat? Discord. I'm sure not the Discord, but
Discord is here.
Discord is here. They've got no image, no profile picture.
Likes to fly anonymously.
Yep.
And while we're on Intel and AMD, I will just say, I think someone else said it way up above, and I did read this morning. Donald Trump has met with the Intel CEO, and they're building a fabrication plant, I think in Arizona, and spending $7 billion, and are employing up to 10,000 people. And that just broke like a couple of hours ago.
They're probably going to be using Intel machine learning to figure out how to build the wall cheaper.
Probably. Hey, if it create 10,000 jobs, that's crazy. That's
There you go,
crazy.
drain the swamp.
And imagine the next Intel CPUs, right? 2018, 2019, 2020, made in America or made in the USA. To see that on a box instead of Malaysia and stuff like
Costa
that.
Rica.
Costa Rica, like we've seen those for years, but to see made in the USA, oh man, that would be a huge, huge deal.
He wants a big American flag on the side of Intel boxes.
It probably will happen. It will probably happen.
America first.
Intel is a CPU that Americans use.
Yep. All right. So Logitech, they've announced their new webcam, which is called Brio. So they've ditched the C900 nomenclature, and they're going with the Logitech Brio, which is going to have 1080p 60 FPS and 4K HDR, which is awesome. It's gonna be $200 coming out. It's out. It's out now. They were just like, oh, guess what? Here you go. It's out. Like Salt Bay. They just dropped it in. They're just Salt Baying webcams out into the scene.
You need to join their marketing department. I can just see the like.
just go ahead. Just someone go ahead and animate that in or something. I'm not that good with After Effects, but if someone wants to take like Logitech webcams and have me like digitally Salt Baying them into the air, then go for it. I'll retweet that once or twice.
Give it 5 minutes. Someone's gonna have it.
I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, okay. So webcam, awesome. Hopefully, maybe have one here for the channel. Hopefully, do a review soon. I got the C922 when that came out. That's what I'm using right now. I've been using it since I got it. I usually use it at 1080 30 FPS, but it does 720 60 FPS. I don't know if I get this though. I think it'd be worth probably upgrading the stream to doing TGW in 4K, right?
I think at this quality, yeah, and you could record it and then punch in and still have good detail.
Yep, absolutely.
It's really good, and I think it does 1080p 60 as well. I think.
Yep, 1080p 60. 30. Yeah, 1080p really 60 and 4K 30. It's really impressive.
Did you watch the marketing video for how Logitech actually create the sensors?
No, I didn't see that.
You should watch it. It's actually really impressive the way that they make every lens individually and test it all individually, like in a room with like all these lights, and there's like 100 sensors on this like weird machine, and then there's like 50 other machines with a bunch of other sensors. It actually, it was a really. I remember when I posted on Tweets, I had it.
Hey, you'll have to link it to me later. I'll check it out. It sounds cool.
It was really cool.
I love tech stuff like that. They need to do how it's made for like everything tech wise. Like Nvidia,
it's really great.
like Nvidia, like get behind your marketing department on that Founders Edition. Like, why didn't you guys make like a 10-minute video of like how some guy like sat there and like grinded out the first Founders Edition card by hand or something?
Yeah.
Like with the piece of steel or something like that. Just show me that. Give me some type of service.
Like you see him in the middle of a jungle and he's like, he's trying to play games and he can't play them at high enough detail. He's like, screw it, I'm gonna make a new card. He's like just tinkering, like.
Ting,
and
ting,
then just
ting, ting.
eventually, like, he comes out and just like all this light and the green turns on, and that would look so cool.
There you
that
go.
Would look cool.
Yep. Hire me, Nvidia. I'll publish that. I'll publish that video for you.
$1 million a day.
I'll film it on the Logitech Brio.
There you go. See, and one of the ex Nvidia marketing guys now works at Logitech, so you're kind of like combining both of the giants there. Andrew Coonrad.
There we go. All right, we got a couple of gaming topics. First one's a pretty quick one, just kind of like a PSA. I'm not really sure what this applies, which CPUs this applies to, but I guess Resident Evil 7 on launch wasn't running on older generation CPUs because it had to do an instruction set check in order to be able to run the game, which was SSS E3 SIMD. Do you have any idea what that is, Anthony?
Yeah, it's an instruction set that Intel's had for years now.
So, like, which CPU, like, how far does this go back? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. So, SSE3 is Streaming SIMD Extensions 3, which has been around since the Prescott CPUs in 2004.
That's
that's a long time. So, you're looking at, like, from 2004 till now. It's like, again, what I don't understand, right? This is a direct attack on Capcom, you pieces of shit. Do you not test Resident Evil 7 on older CPUs, like from maybe 5 years ago, 7 years ago, just to see how the game will run? Oh, look, it's not running well. Let's find out what this problem is. Oh, look, it's this specific Intel instruction. Ring Intel. Hey, Intel, there's this issue. Okay, we're going to tell Microsoft to release a new patch for Windows 10. Done. But no, like
That's
how do you
that
need to have
does
a
make
patch for a game?
sense.
Like you think that they would test their game on like a variety of PCs, right? Like Core i3, Core i5, Core i7. Not every single CPU, but every range to see, okay, 4-thread performance, 8-thread performance, whatever. You think they'd test it with CPUs from 5 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, just to make sure that things like this don't happen. At least they patched it quick, but there's ways around this.
Yeah, it's they just need to have a PC game, like just one PC gamer. They just need every game developer needs to have a resident PC gamer in house that just
Yep.
sits there and checks them on all their shit. And
Yep.
he just sits in a room, like a benchmarking room, and just has like a test rig with an AMD and Nvidia and Intel and ultra wide monitors and 4K and everything, and just all set up, and just like telling everyone like, yep, everything's good here, guys, we're looking good, or no, like you need to add ultra wide support. This black bar bullshit has to go.
Yep. Yep. I just exactly like I don't understand. It's like I remember when Far Cry 3 came out and they didn't use any 4K monitors. And it's like really no one in the office has a 4K display that they thought, oh wow, we're developing this game that we've spent $150 million on. Maybe we should buy like a $400 monitor and test it on it. Oh wow, it doesn't work. Oh, no one uses 4K. It's like, do you think that again, like you said, they should have a guy in a room, they should have a board up on the wall, and then he just writes the hardware he needs. You know, he's finished testing the CPUs that he's using. Okay, I need to have 7700K, I need to have this Core i5, I need to have 1080, 1070, 1060, 980, blah, 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 and just continuously test hardware. I don't see why this happens. And it's not like it's a game breaking kind of thing, but it's just a little thing. It's like, they need to add a patch to support older generation CPUs. That shouldn't happen in 2017.
We could start this as a outsourcing service. You realize we can employ a few guys, and we hire out our services to game developers and publishers to bring us in. 2 weeks out before a game is set to launch, they bring us in to kind of test things out, to let them know how shit their game is running on the PC.
Yep.
And we give them our report, and then they fix the problem, and then it goes out into the world.
That's it. And then we invoice them for like $50,000.
Exactly. That's what we do.
I feel that. Like they need to have an actual
I'm putting a
true
patent on
PC
that.
gamers. They need to have PC gamers. You should. They
Yeah.
need to have PC gamers that come in and do this because it's sad to me. It's like, to me, like it gives me a really negative thought train on game developers. I feel like they all just sit there just like playing their game on a console at like 720p, but then they go, oh, yep, the latest build's working. Then they move off to their PC to develop the game. Then they finish with the build for the day, write it to a disk or to a USB stick, put it into their Xbox One development kit. This is running really good. You don't think to test it on your PC? Like how are these issues happening? It blows my mind. Like really, like, my brain hurts to think like this.
And Luis Ortiz had asked in chat if Resident Evil 7 has 21:9 support. It does not. Capcom has come forward and said that it won't. And the reason that they gave was the typical PR marketing spin answer. They were like, oh, well, we can't because then it puts more stuff on the screen, and then that's too hard for people to run with their computers.
Yep.
Like, yeah, yep. And so is 4K, but you put in 4K. I mean, I could go and put on 8K if I've got an 8K monitor and cranked up DSR, but you didn't disable 8K because it was too taxing.
Yep.
It's just laziness.
It is laziness, and I think that a game like Resident Evil 7 would be glorious on an ultra wide. Like you can see, I've got one just up behind me. I love ultra wide. And as I think Cell Processors just said, all games should support 21:9 now. No excuse for that. I totally agree. I think that 21:9, it's not like if there were like 16K displays or something like that where it was just so ridiculous, or VR where it's a lot harder to just go from a game to supporting it in VR. I can understand, but 21:9, there's no excuse for competitive gaming. People like developers like Blizzard, we don't want to support 21:9 because it's gives an advantage to ultra wide gamers, which it does. So then just ban it in the competitive matches, but let you play it in normal matches. Same with Resident Evil 7. It's a single player game. Let you enjoy 21:9 support. I don't get it.
Speaking of 21:9, what do you think about that 21:10 display that Acer just announced? That 3440 by 1600.
Really nice. I either want that one or LG has one as well, a 38-inch. I think what is it?
Yeah, I know.
UC 9088 or whatever it is, it's like 3840 by 1600.
Ooh,
And that's, yeah, when I heard about that, I'm like, yep, I
60
need
hertz. I'm
that.
assuming for that one.
Yeah, I know. It's the only thing that sucks. And it's
I'll
like
take.
$2,000 here in Australia. I'm like, yeah, no.
It was I'm glad that it has FreeSync on the Acer one, but at the same point, I'm like, there's no really AMD GPU that's going to be able to power that monitor at 75 hertz at that
Yeah,
resolution
yeah, yeah.
yet. But
But
not
yeah,
hopefully
I
not
kind of
long.
don't get it. Like we have all these displays that are awesome now with FreeSync, but then like AMD even has like a 2560 by 1440 144 hertz FreeSync display. There's no graphics cards with it from AMD that can run that like at all. You'd have to run Crossfire 480s or Crossfire Fury X's, and you just don't get there.
Yeah.
It's bad.
All right, so our last topic here. This is about Denuvo, which always gets Anthony and I fired up because we both hate Denuvo and their DRM tech. And after Resident Evil 7, which had Denuvo, it got cracked within 5 days. So good job CPY on cracking that. I saw that they also recently cracked Battlefield 1. So they're just knocking out Denuvo DRM left and right. And now Denuvo's answer to that is to kind of tighten the wrenches a bit on the DRM tech and putting out something new for the next game that's going to come out. Which they've right now we know Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 will be using it, but we don't know if For Honor, Ghost Recon Wildlands, or Mass Effect Andromeda are a few games that were listed here on DSOG, the source for this article. So we don't know if those games will have it yet, but yeah, we'll see.
I think that people smashing it, like, I understand that they want to build in anti-tamper tech, but the problem is that people will pirate the games these days because they can't afford them. Like, it's as easy as that. Like, I'm sorry, if you price the games this expensive, of course people are going to be angry about that. And I don't like that, you have to have people breaking the copy protection and stuff like that. But I think that, I don't know, you would agree, right? If you look at the way the movie market is, you buy a Blu-ray or a 4K Blu-ray, you might spend $30, $40 on that. So you might say you buy 10 movies a month, that's $500, that average, just bump it up to $500 and maybe a couple of TV series in there. But you can get Netflix for less than $15 a month and have unlimited TV and movies, a small selection, but still unlimited, all you can eat. If games were to do that, you wouldn't need this stuff. Look at games these days. You buy a game for like $70, and then it's like a DLC pack for an extra $50 or the season pass, whatever. I just bought. What did I buy? I bought Rainbow Six Siege yesterday in Australia, $140. What the hell? Like again, like if you're a 17-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid or a 25-year-old, I shouldn't say kid at that stage, 25-year-old adult, spending $100 on a game is really hard, especially when you want to buy 3 or 4 games a month. If they dropped the price to like $20 each and then said, like, look, we're going to remove the anti-tamper tech out of it, we're going to remove DRM, but we're going to drop the price of games in the hopes that more people will buy them, I think the sales would increase and this stuff would disappear. You wouldn't have any of these problems ever again.
No, yeah, I agree because they've been trying for the past years, as online stuff has become more prevalent, trying to sell games as a service as a thing. With each game that comes out, they want to have that game being the new service so that they can keep adding onto it and selling gamers more things tacked onto that thing that they already put out. And if they would just stop trying to micromanage that down to each individual title and do games as a service on the more broad spectrum, and have things like EA's game service and, forgetting other developers like an Activision one, and a Ubisoft one, what have you, have all of these different ones can do their own different services where they could bundle in their games in that, and it would be perfect. It would be, and with games, they could probably charge more than Netflix. Certainly, I would think. Typically, I mean, remember back renting games like Blockbuster, games were like double what a video was. So, if you add that on and say, let's see, GameFlix is $25 a month, but you could play games as much as you want. All the new games out day one, you've got them all the DLC, no questions asked. Like, yeah, sure, sign me up.
I think, and I'll be the same. People would do that, and you could even probably charge $100 a month, and people would still do it because you'd be able to justify. Okay, if I bought like 1 game this month or 2 games this month,
I think 100's too much. Because especially if you consider like each developer is going to have their own thing, because you're not going to get one thing like just unless they did like Steam. If they did like, okay, Steam Online, here you go, Steam Online is $100 a month, the entire Steam library at your disposal. Go.
Steam Online $100 a month, but that would be perfect. And you think you have say 10 million gamers doing that per month? That's a lot. That is
It's a lot of coin.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money. I don't know how many people could afford $100 a month. That's I think that'd be out of their reach.
I think you could do a sliding scale. You could maybe charge $25 and give them 720p game streaming. $50, give them 1080p game streaming, and $100 is 144 FPS high and higher ultra wide and 4K. They
Oh
could
yes, because
they could save.
yeah, that'll be the thing as well. Is they'll have to do everything. Will be streaming off the systems too, so you can run it off of any PC basically.
But then I
Laptop,
think
everything
that
is streamed
that's
from
the
the cloud.
future though, and I think that technologies like HBC on Vega, the high bandwidth cache, that will be fast enough to take like an encrypted kind of stream. So then the information can be 10 times smaller, and then it's decrypting from the host files on the PC within the high bandwidth cache, and then HBM2 will have enough bandwidth to do that. So if you think like 4 or 5 years from now, or even let's say 10 years from now, we might have encryption and compression technologies that make game streaming at 4K and beyond a reality. I don't see that. Like I can't see games getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we get to games that are like 600 gigabyte installation because it's like 8K textures and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
you're
totally.
gonna have like 30 terabyte SSDs at that point. It's just going to get so ridiculous. And yes, we probably will get there. And yes, there's going to be people that are going to watch this video 5-10 years from now and be like, ha ha, Anthony was wrong. But it's like, we don't know where the future is going. Like, again, 10 years ago, would you have thought that Netflix would be where it is? They had more money than the big movie studios at the Sundance Film Festival just recently. They were going in there and knocking out, Paramount and Fox for the rights to movies and TV shows. If you had said that 10 years ago, like even this year, they're like, where the hell did Netflix come from?
It's because they have like every 1 in 5 citizens in America on Netflix $10 a month, like a freaking heroin addiction. Everyone's just sitting there just mainlining movies like 24/7. They've got
Because
the
at
whole
$10
country
a month,
running off Netflix.
you don't need to care. At $10 a month, it's and yes, that might be a lot for some people. Even US minimum wage is like what 1.5 hours of work for unlimited TV and movies. I think that's amazing. Like like someone said, what did they say? I'm allergic to subscription services. I agree, and I was the same. But then I started to really think, okay, how much am I spending on this and this?
I
I looked at it, I'm like, and
I
yeah,
have,
and
I have a problem. I have an addiction to services too. I see something come up that I use, and then they have a thing in the corner that's like, oh, but you could just pay $5 a month, and you could support us, and you can make the service that you're using all the time even better. And I'm just like, okay, and I just see it keep coming out of my PayPal each month, and I don't even care about it. I was just like, I don't care.
I'm the same. I have like Google Play Music. I have Spotify. I have Netflix, and in Australia we have something called Stan, which is like the Australian equivalent. I've got so many, and it's like, but then I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, okay, like if I was to be a normal person without streaming services, I had really crappy internet, I would buy a Blu-ray or 2 each month. Well, in Australia, Blu-rays are like between $20 and $40 each. I'm looking at like say $100 for 2 or 3 Blu-rays in a month. $100 pays for all my streaming services, every single one, and then I get unlimited on each of those services. So it really works out so well. Like,
and those have
really,
4K
really...
now. They have 4K now too. My TV, I had the Amazon app on there since it came out, but they just added 4K support now onto the TV's Amazon app. So I was like, sweet.
Yep.
No, I don't need.
And
like,
Netflix and Amazon in
box.
4K, they look really good. I've got a 4K TV just off camera, and I use the NVIDIA Shield to stream 4K onto that, and it's beautiful. Netflix in 4K is really nice, really nice.
Definitely is. Yeah, I watched everything on there. Basically, it goes into 4K. I'm just like, oh, there's something new out in 4K. Even if it's like mediocre, I'm gonna watch it because it's 4K.
And they could have charged more for that. Like I would have been happy paying like another $10 a month for access to 4K. Because it does cost them a lot more in bandwidth and a lot more to store that. But it's good that they kept the same price and just give you 4K. That's awesome.
I think what it is that so few people are using it still at this point, the 4K stuff, that's probably why they're able to keep it as cheap as it is for now. But yeah. All right, so that's pretty much all of our topics for today. If you guys want to do a few questions in chat before we get out of here, we've got about 10 minutes to do Q&A before we get out of here, though. For next week, I'm not sure who's going to be here next. Are you going to be here next week? Or
I will be. I go to the States. I think I leave I get my flight itinerary today, and then I'll be able to let you know.
All right, cool.
But I'll be here this week, and then next week I'm okay. The week after, I'll be in San Francisco for GDC. So I could probably do a live stream from the hotel at GDC.
Yeah, all right, cool. I'm going down to Philadelphia this weekend, just like a little weekend trip. And I just finished booking up for PAX East, so I will be at PAX East, but I don't think you're going to that one. I know Steve
When is PAX East?
PAX East is March 10th through 12th.
Oh yeah, I definitely won't be. I won't be doing that.
Well, I just
two US trips
wow.
and 150 hours of flights
I
in
just
the next 2 weeks is enough
I
for me.
just I just I just said that out loud, that March 10th through 12th thing, and then I looked down at the calendar in the corner of my screen. I realized that is like 4 weeks away. I was like, I just realized that's really soon. I need to get my shit together.
Yep.
I need to like do like some like, oh yeah, I need a new travel mic. There's a few things I need. Damn.
So it's the 9th here in Australia, Thursday. I fly out on Monday morning, and I haven't even got my flight itinerary yet. Like I don't even have it, and I hate not having that. It's like I'm doing this 60-hour, like 70-hour return trip, and I don't have my flight itinerary.
What is your
Oh.
favorite kind of pizza? I mean, I'm a big fan of plain pizza in general. I do like plain pizza, but like for topping wise, I like recently I've been enjoying grilled chicken with bacon is pretty nice, with like some blue cheese crumble. What about you?
A Hawaiian with jalapenos.
Ugh.
Nice.
Any pizza with pineapple, in my opinion, is no longer a pizza.
It's an Australian thing, I think. Every time I say that, and whenever I go to the States, like, which is once
No,
every 3 4
they
weeks, and like,
they
what the
do.
hell are you ordering?
No, they do it in America, but it's like, people you don't want to really hang out associate with, like hipsters and such.
Ah, so
It's like
that's why my beard's growing. I'm turning into a hipster. I knew it was something.
that's what it is. It's like hipsters and like vegetarians, like you see in like they order like pineapple in their pizza and
Well,
just like
normally I get if I don't get ham and pineapple, I get ham and capsicum with jalapenos. That's nice, and sometimes buffalo sauce. It's a nice spicy mix.
let's see, thoughts on Ghost Recon Wildlands. Did you have a chance to play the beta?
I played it for literally 30 seconds. I got in and I'm like, oh, I'll come back to this tonight. And then I had to do heaps of work, and when I got back to it, it was closed. For the few seconds that I played, it looked really nice. I was playing it on the ultra wide behind me, and it has 21:9 support. Everyone, for anyone that wants to know, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
I finished up all the missions that they gave us to play. It only took me about 2 hours to do that, and it was just like, yeah, you played all of the single player missions in this, so you can't play anymore. So I was like, okay. I had fun playing the missions, but it didn't really feel fleshed out as far as a narrative was concerned. But it felt fun enough. It was kind of like the Division, but in the jungle, and it also a lot of the stuff going around and fighting the mercenaries. It reminded me of Mercenaries. Did you ever play
Was
the game
it? No, I
Mercenaries?
didn't know. Was it easier to play, like with all the gadgets and stuff that you have to use, or?
Yeah, the gadgets and all that, seemed accessible, and I could imagine playing it in co-op with my friends. But I'm afraid that the missions are going to get repetitive because it seemed like you were doing a lot of the same actions over and over again. Like you were either going to a base to interrogate someone or to neutralize a target or do this or that, and it was pretty much all the same kind of things over and over and over again, which I'm okay with if the gameplay is fun and I can get on and it's accessible with my friends. But that's really all I see it for, is just kind of a rinse and repeat open world thing to do events with your friends so you have something to do, I guess. But I don't really see myself putting a ton of time into it.
I wish that games like that they gave you like destructible environments, and then gave you a building that you and two other teams had to defend. Like say 2 teams of 4, so you can have your friends and you have to hold a building defense, and then have like 5 or 6 teams trying to attack it. Because then it doesn't matter. You don't need to have a story. It can just be like a tower defense kind of game. But that, yeah, I don't know. From everyone that I've heard that's played this, they're just like, it's good, but it's like, what do you do?
Susie Morris asked, "What is your dream PC?" I'm pretty much using it. I mean,
My dream PC,
I pretty much
Ryzen,
I'd like a
two
Titan
Vega
X.
10s.
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
think the
it's
future.
yeah, like in the future, like yeah, Ryzen with like 8 cores, 16 threads, overclocked, underwater, with next generation Titan X Pascal. Just one. I can't be bothered with the multi GPU stuff anymore.
I've got a Titan X Pascal. I'm still waiting for Vega 10.
I'm
I
waiting
want
for
Vega.
Titan X. I'm waiting for Titan X Volta if they're gonna actually
Titan X
continue with that
Volta will
naming.
be crazy if they can. If they're using HBM2 on the next generation Titan X, sign me up.
Well, I was upset that I didn't get Titan X when it came out this time, and now I feel like it's been too long to commit to spending $1,200. That's why I'm waiting for 1080 Ti to come out, and I'm gonna get that. And then whenever the next Titan comes out, whatever that is, I'm gonna buy that, and that's gonna be my new upgrade cycle. Is just every Titan. That way I could
The
just
Titan is
I could take
people
out the
go, oh, it's
guesswork.
not worth it, but it's
It is.
when you buy a Titan, it's like getting a Ti 6 months earlier and faster. It's like, why not just get one? Because if you're going to
Or
get a
SLI,
TI,
or skipping
yeah,
SLI without the headache and trouble. And if you've got that kind of money and you're the type of person that wants to upgrade every 2 years anyway, it makes it simple for you. Just
yeah,
I'm upgrading every Titan. That's it. Every
yeah,
Titan that comes out, I'm getting that, and I will have the best NVIDIA card of each generation guaranteed.
yep. Yep, no, I totally agree. I'm the same. I use my Titan X, especially for my high-end PC gaming, like 1440p, 165 hertz, 3440, 1440, 100 hertz. Titan X, it's beautiful. Justin Chan said, does the mysterious Tweaked Town motherboard reviewer Stephen Basseri ever make public appearances? Yes, he does.
Was that him walking in the background just now?
No, that was my nephew that was walking in the background.
Oh, okay.
No, he does. He was at CES, and he goes to Computex, and he does a Facebook Live video once every month or two. But yes, he's too busy testing motherboards and CPUs, and he has a lot. He has like an entire cupboard full of motherboards. He showed me a picture one day. It's just like box on box on box on box on literally like 50 or 100 motherboards. It just so many. He just benchmarks all day.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah, someone's saying, what do you think's going on with 1080 Ti? Do you think NVIDIA is waiting to see AMD does with Vega? Yes, I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think they were kind of geared up to announce something at CES if AMD was ready with Vega, but they weren't, so they're just kind of keeping that one just kind of tucked away for the time being because they have no reason to release 1080 Ti.
All I will say is that I think it is closer than we think.
Yeah. He has a grin on his face like he knows something, like he's got one like sitting in a box next to him or something.
Yeah,
I'm like looking. I see a brown box in the corner. I see a brown box in the bottom left. What's in that box, Anthony? What's in the box?
Someone's gonna like use NCIS technology, like zoom in, enhance.
Hang on. Let me put Anthony on full screen here so we can analyze this better. Yeah, I think it's definitely that brown box in the bottom left looks fresh.
And what was it? Actually, you don't even want to know what's in that brown box. Actually, in that brown box is a story that I did for the fleshlights, like okay.
It really like in the back of my mind, like I was thinking like it was that, but I was like, no, it's not going to be that. But then it really went in that direction. Please continue.
And it was like, and I'm not joking. So I wrote this news like probably like 3 years ago about the iPad attachment with the fleshlight, and then that story blew up. It was like 6 months of traffic in one story. And the company reached out to me, thank you, like your story went viral, we're everywhere because of you, thank you so much. Can we send you one for review? And I'm like, how am I going to review this? Like, I'm not going to review it. I'm like, send it to me, but I can't review it. Like, really? Could you imagine, like, trying to do a review of a fleshlight with an iPad attachment and then talking about your experience with it? How do you talk about that? Like,
I could think of a few ways. Although I'd be embarrassed to present them to the general public, though.
I'm happy to use it, but yeah, the public would never know about that. But that's what was in that box.
As a potential customer myself, I would be curious to know if it's an attachment to the iPad. Like, how secure does it say to the iPad during vigorous motions? Do you have to move the entire iPad? Do you hold the iPad and move that, and then the fleshlight moves in tandem, or are they completely independent of each other with like some sort of attachment mechanism?
They're attached to each other, but I never even put my iPad on it. And there's so many. I had more questions when I opened the box, and about even myself and my life. I'm like, where am I going with my life when I get these things to review, right? Like, what happened? I thought I was a GPU reviewer and a display editor, and I wrote news, and then I get this fleshlight I'm supposed to, like, masturbate with my iPad on and write a review about it. I'm like, in my direction, there was a fork in the road, bro. I went off in the wrong direction somewhere.
At what point does that concern come up? Is it when you first open the box and see the object, or is it when you're finally laying on the bed with, like, a jar of, like, Vaseline and tissues with the thing beside you, and you're just like, what is my life? And you don't know whether to use the tissues to come on or cry. That's basically the point of that.
And if you're gonna if you're gonna use the tissues, do the second one first, not the first one, and then the second one.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. All right. Anyway, this TGW took an interesting direction there.
Yes.
But all right, I think we're gonna go ahead and get on out of here and wrap it up on that note, guys. But thanks again to Anthony for joining us for TGW. We'll be back next week.
Thank you for having me.
I'll be back next week at least. I don't know if I'll have Steve here or if I'll be flying solo. If I If I end up doing it solo, I'll probably pre-record it. Like last week, I liked doing that myself. The pre-recording.
If you want to do
was
a
better.
solo, let me know and I'll send you the flashlight. It should be good.
Good. All right. Yeah, that's perfect for going solo. That's what they're made for, isn't it?
Pretty
All right.
much, yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. We're gonna get out of here though. Don't forget to check out Anthony's work over at Tweaktown. Use all these good stories and all the rumors and stuff over there. Pretty good place to go. You pretty much kind of aggregate all the rumors from everywhere into one place. That's why I like to go there. It's easy. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next week. Ta-da.
Thank you.